And hello and welcome to this series of videos on inequalities, where our solutions are represented as a range of possible values rather than just a single value. So what are we going to be looking at in this series? Well, we've got to look at linear inequalities, and we're going to revisit those and just have a little bit more of a think about the issues surrounding what happens when multiplying or dividing by a negative. That's essentially just GCSE, but it's worth looking at again. And then we're going to move on and look at quadratic inequalities, where things get slightly more complex. And then finally, look at that in the context of discriminants, because you often find that your inequality skills and being able to use the discriminant, those ideas are kind of mixed up together in a lot of questions that you get at AS level. So here we go. Let's just have a look at linear inequalities. First, let's just go back and have a look at some statements. Clearly there's a statement, 8 is greater than 6. Nothing particularly exciting or surprising about that. It's clearly a true statement. But then if I take that statement and I say, okay, let's just multiply that statement by 3, 24 greater than 18, still true, not a problem. If I divide it, again, we've got 4 greater than 3, still true, all fine so far. This is where we get the issue. So now if I take that statement and I multiply the whole statement by minus 3, what we get is that minus 24 is greater than minus 18. Now clearly that one is not true. So we've got to be really careful what we're doing with negatives. And the last one, same thing when we're dividing by a negative. Let's have a look at what we get from there. We've now got minus 4 is greater than minus 3, which again is clearly not true. So what happens is effectively, like when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, it makes the statement not true. So to deal with that, you just have to flip the inequality sign around, and you've got to be aware of that when you're dealing with inequalities. So here we go. Let's have a look at a simple example where this pops up. So we've got 4 minus 3x is less than 19. So if we go about solving that, move the 4 over, we've got minus 3x is less than 15. And this is where this issue occurs, because technically speaking, what we're not doing is just moving numbers to the other side of the equation. What we've got to do to solve this is take this whole equation here and divide the whole equation by minus 3. And because we're dividing by minus, that's where we need to reverse the inequality sign. So you just need to be aware of that. And so we end up with our solution that x is greater than minus 5. And you can see there, the inequality sign has changed direction. Now, you can get around that whole issue just by how you choose to solve the inequality, and my personal choice is to do it this way rather than having to think about what's going on here. And so what I would do with this is say, well, you know what, I know from this I've got an issue with a negative. My issue is here. So let's just deal with that first of all by just rearranging the equation and moving that 3x over to the side. So now that divide by 3 step that's coming later here, it's no longer going to be a negative. So let's just go through our steps of solving this. So move the 19, so we've got minus 15 less than 3x. Now the dividing stage, we're dividing by a positive, we're not dividing by a negative. And there we go. And hopefully you'll realise that these two statements are exactly the same. What we've got here is x is bigger than minus 5. This one is saying minus 5 is smaller than x. Alternatively, within inequalities, you can read it from right to left rather than left to right. So here we're saying x is greater than minus 5. That statement there is clearly exactly the same as that one there. Okay, here's another one, slightly more complicated. Let's have a look what's going to happen with this. So we're just going to treat it in exactly the same way as we would just treat a normal equation. So the first thing to do is deal with the brackets. And clearly you just got to be a bit careful. Let's just be careful. We've got minus 1, minus 2x. We've just got to be careful with the minus signs. Now what I'm going to do is collect all my x's together. And it might be that I choose to collect them all together on this side, which will give me negatives. So what I'm going to choose to do is collect them so that my x terms become positive. So I'm going to do it such that the 2x comes over here and I end up with a positive 11x. And that 44 has just come from gathering all the constant terms together, and so there we go, we've got 4 is equal to or greater than x, and again it is more normal just to write it as x equals less than 4, and again hopefully you can realise that that statement there and that statement there are exactly the same thing. Sorted.